All right, let's talk a little bit about the Ahsoka finale. Since we're here, we've gone through it all. We've talked about the first seven, and so let's get right into the finale, our final thoughts, and then we'll jump into a little bit of a season recap, and we'll let everybody give their final thoughts. I know a couple of us here, B-Boy Bryant and Tanner, have not been on any of these review videos yet, so we'll get to hear their takes fresh on this one. So how about we let one of you guys go first and just give your brief, brief opinion, things you like, didn't like about the finale. Don't everybody talk at once, though.
I mean, the finale essentially wraps up the season in a way. I mean, I know we're supposed to get into details and stuff. I don't want to
Oh,
get
this is a spoiler review. Go ahead.
too much details of things, but it wraps things up and gives a little twists to things. So it's a way to end the season.
That is a very diplomatic way of putting that. Tanner, what did you think?
I was pretty satisfied overall with it. Some things, obviously, I kind of knew going into it with all the loose ends that they had set up in the season. I didn't expect them to tie them all up at the end of the season because I know it's kind of pointing towards Dave Filoni's movie that he's wanting to do. But I think overall I was pretty satisfied with the story, and the ending was kind of shocking. I wasn't expecting that kind of at least where they would be at the end, being stuck on the planet, at least for Sabine and Ahsoka. But definitely sets up some interesting things going forward, and intrigued to see what they'll do. But overall, I was satisfied, but I thought the previous two episodes were better than the closing one.
Well, I mean, I think I'll let Drew and Schultz give their take first, because y'all know me, I gotta bring everybody else down. So y'all go ahead, and then I'll give my take on it.
Go ahead, Ethan.
Starters, to start with it was a little anticlimactic for me. I think more or less the fight scenes in general. I just thought it was going to be a little bit more, and there wasn't. And then, I mean, it was kind of cool seeing the, the night troopers turn into the undead night troopers. That was interesting to see, I guess. It was kind of a little bit cool of a take on it, but it was kind of like, I don't know, not anything crazy. The ending, though, to it was interesting. I think they could have done better. But also, I mean, it makes me more intrigued to know what happens now with going forward with them being stuck on the planet, Sabine and Ahsoka. Kind of just obviously Tanner said, loose ends and stuff. So I mean, makes me more all right, well, I kind of want to see more now. So it's kind of leaves me wanting more, I guess you could say. Overall, though, it was kind of I guess Tanner said again, it just last two episodes were probably better than this one. It's just a little more anticlimactic for me. I also do I want to put in there, I do like the fact that I think we talked about it a couple episodes ago where we were hoping that Sabine wasn't going to do some crap where she pulled down a star. What is it?
Star Destroyer or anything.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
A lightsaber and then put it through the trooper's head, which is kind of cool. I mean, I think that they did well with that. I don't think they went too over the top with it. They kind of just chilled. And then they obviously had her force push Ezra to the ship, which I was okay, well, I mean, I guess that's kind of, I could see her doing it, but also a little pushing it maybe. But I don't know. I think they did a pretty decent job with that as well.
All right.
So after episode 6 and 7, I was kind of hoping they would tie up more than they did. I feel like that kind of left everything open, which, I mean, that's the point, right? The point is you watch the show so you'll go pay to watch the movie. I think, yeah, I mean, I agree with pretty much everything that's been said. I mean, it's just, I get why they didn't. It's just super frustrating. I think Balin and Shin were the two most interesting characters in the show, and they nothing happened with them really. Interested to see what happens with Balin's character, if they get somebody else to play him, or if they had enough shot already to kind of tie it up. Not sure how they're going to do that one. Obviously they weren't. That's not the plan, but and then Ezra being back. I don't know. This is more questions than answers, I guess. That's what frustrates me.
Which it seems kind of the antithesis of a finale, right? It's supposed to like tie up pretty much all the loose ends and then leave like one little thread for you to carry on into the next season. So
they left a lot of threads. So
yeah,
but I mean, I don't necessarily have a problem with any of them. I think Thrawn going to straight to Dathomir is pretty interesting. I have some theories about when we're going to see stuff happen and stuff like that. But overall, it was a good way to end it, I guess. I'm just like Ethan said, I'm just glad they didn't do anything over the top or out there, just because it was a finale. So satisfied with the season as a whole, though.
I'd expect, hopefully, that the movie would wrap things up a little bit better and would answer some of those questions. I come to expect series like this from Disney Plus, just Disney Plus kind of being a way to get the fans engaged in the movie, pretty much. And
I think that's what it has to be to me, because they lose all kinds of money on Disney Plus and making these shows. So you have to build to something,
Well, and what I think it was Katie Sackhoff who plays, Bo-Katan and in the, Clone Wars and Mandalorian, where she said that the catering budget for the Mandalorian costs more than like the average, some of the average, below budget movies these days. And so it's just to say all that to say they throw a heck of a lot of money at these shows. And I want to say they said that Ahsoka on the generous, like the, I guess the low end was like 120 million or something to make, the one season of 8 episodes or something. It might have been 150, but it was a heck of a lot. So I think
that's more than 100 million. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think I think you could probably apply that to pretty much every Disney Plus show that's like Marvel or Star Wars that are probably at least in that range. And so I think it goes without saying that they need these to be hits and they need them to be ginning up a lot of excitement for the next project, because ultimately, I mean, it's no secret to any of us. We've talked about it in other videos, but like they're not exactly, hitting their peak right now in terms of success and, financial success, critical success, fans, just interest with the fan base. Because so I think when you get shows like this, and we've talked about it on previous videos where the views are just not there as much as they were. I think the only show that that it outperformed was Andor in terms of like the premiere episodes. And we all know like Andor was probably the best Disney Plus show we've had so far in terms of quality, yet this, it's the lowest one. And I think it's just because nobody cared much about it. And so you get this one, which is a similarly sort of niche character. If you haven't watched the animated stuff, you're not going to know that much about her. I think it was going to be difficult for them to, much like Andor was a niche character, it was going to be hard for them to have any sort of serious casual fan interest for this one. And so the question is, could they pull that off and tie in all these, Rebels threads and Clone Wars threads and all this stuff? And so I don't know, for me, I think the finale was sort of a kind of a mess of things, because we kind of got that and I'll try to keep this as brief as possible, but we kind of got that unfortunate case of they sort of made things happen in the episode the way they happened because they needed to happen to progress the story or to get this character from this point to this point. And without explaining, like the whole thing with Sabine, not for like 2 episodes, not telling Ezra how she got there, and that Thrawn, that she gave Thrawn a way back and all this stuff, and then like in the last episode, they just like act like it never had, like don't even answer it. Like there's no conversation between the two, and like Ezra all of a sudden just knows Thrawn's there and he's cool with it, and they just go with it. He's not mad. Like I'd be pretty ticked off. I spent 4 seasons of another show, or at least 2 seasons of another show, getting rid of that bad guy, and now you brought him right back over here, and you gave him a way out. So it's like I sacrificed myself to make sure he didn't get back, and now you just kind of let him back in, and he's just like, I'm good, whatever, who cares? I was like, seriously, like nothing, like not at all. We're not gonna have any kind of explanation for that. The ship just is suddenly there to catch them at the end when they jump off. It's like, no, it's crashed into the ground. They're fixing it. And then the next thing, boom, it's there. It's like, okay, well, that
didn't
happened.
even like call for it or anything like that.
Yeah.
That was
They
kind
just jumped and you're like, well, they're dead. It's like, nope, the ship's there. So
No, you knew the ship was coming.
You did, but I think
you never once
bad
thought
thing
they
about
were
it.
dead.
It's just stuff like that frustrates me as someone who, I read a ton of books and I love a well laid out plot where the character decisions all impact what happens, and then you get a finale where it's like, okay, we need this thing and this thing and this thing to happen, so we're just gonna do whatever we have to do to make it happen, regardless of whether it makes sense. And then you just get this sort of mishmash of scenes cut together. And there was another one I was trying to think of that was just like, yeah, that happened, and they just don't explain any of it. I can't remember what it is, but like why are they still protecting these turtle people when they're supposed to be keeping Thrawn from escaping? They're just like cruising along, bebopping along, and he's like, oh yeah, Thrawn's about to escape. You should probably go do something about that. They don't care. They're just over here watching these turtle people, and you're like, well, crap, that guy that you are so worried about for 7 episodes, he's kind of leaving. You should probably go do something. It's like they're just kind of doing their own thing when the episode starts. And so I'm like, well, that's, I guess they're not as worried as we are about it anymore. I mean, I don't know. It's just things like that. And, I guess the question is, do we honestly think this show, I guess 2 things, is this show good enough for season 2? And is it good enough to justify a movie about it? And I think those are the 2 big questions that had to be answered.
Well, are they even going to do a season 2, or are they just going to jump right into the movie? So, like,
That's what I thought.
That's what I figured they were doing. Like, I thought this was like literally all this build up for the movie, and like that's kind of my biggest pet peeve about it, because I thought that's what this was. Is like it's all build up for the movie, and I'm just like,
I think Mando season 4 is coming before a movie, so I think any Disney Plus series in that timeline right now, the Mandoverse, if you want to call it that, whatever. It's going to be leading up to the movie, like from here on. So, like I saw it mentioned that like Mando season 4 may be about how Thrawn starts taking over the Outer Rim planets, and that's how Mando gets sucked in, because they just show up to the planet he's on.
Yeah, I just know, like, they announced all these movies, and we're all well aware of Kathleen Kennedy's track record for getting movies made. I mean, I saw an absurd list of all the projects that she's announced since she's been in charge. I think someone was saying, 75, 80% of them have been canned or shelved or delayed, or, it's an absurd number. So, like, it's not a joke when I say, we can't just assume these movies are going to get made, because right now Disney's got to make stuff that's going to make money. And do we honestly think a show based on, a character that half the people who watch Star Wars don't even know who she is because they don't watch the animated stuff. They just watch the movies. Another character who had a pretty terrible season 3 of Mandalorian after 2 great seasons, in my opinion. And then who else? We don't know who's going to be out, because I mean, if Han, Luke, and Leia, who are the original sort of protagonists for the whole Thrawn era of the Legends material, if they're not going to be a part of it, then
I think that may depend on budget. It just costs so much to get any of those 3 in a movie.
Well, and that's the thing, is the more that Star Wars is made, the less that people are going to go out to watch it. I mean, when Episode 7 came out, the movie, we all wanted to go watch it because we hadn't seen a new movie in quite some time. Now there's not really that lore to Star Wars as much anymore because of all the different things that are getting made to it. And so,
do you think that's a quantity thing or a quality thing, or just both?
They're putting quantity over quality.
I think it's quantity.
I think it's quantity with a lack of quality, if that makes sense. Because I don't think any of us would say we don't want a lot of Star Wars. Like, I would love a show every few months if it was fantastic. And I don't think if they were pumping out great show after great show after great show, I don't think anybody would care how many there were. I think the problem is, and the same thing that the MCU is dealing with, is like, if you're gonna put it out and pay millions of dollars to do it, then make it good, And I think that's where the interest is going away.
I also feel like the MCU hit it. That's a different story, but MCU has kind of hit its peak, and the fact that they're still going.
I mean, you don't think Star Wars has hit its peak yet? I mean,
that's what I was going to say. Star Wars may have already hit. Star Wars may have already hit its peak, but they've waited. Then they waited 20 years to do anything else. So,
yeah. But to the question of, is there going to be another season? There's talks about there being another season, but in my opinion, it kind of seems like that the movie will kind of wrap up this season in a sense, and so season 2 probably won't be that relatable to season 1. There'll probably be a huge jump between this season finale and season 2, episode 1, because you'll have this movie, you'll have everything that's kind of in between the two.
Yeah, I've heard it. I read an article this week about how this was their way to do the Heir to the Empire movie, to get Thrawn back and Ahsoka be gone. And then also in that same article, they were talking about how they think Anakin has kind of taken the place of the father from the Mortis God, or the Mortis arc from the Clone Wars. And Anakin's kind of taken the father's place, and now Ahsoka is going to fill the place of the daughter, and then they're still trying to, that's what's calling Balin, is to basically take the place of the son.
Yeah, I watched this similar kind of theory on a Star Wars Theories channel, if you are familiar with him, but he kind of broke down that arc as well. And if you noticed at the end, when Balin is standing on the statue of the father, he's kind of pointing. If you look to the left, it's supposed to be the daughter, and the head is missing. And that's theorized because Ahsoka is now taking the place of the daughter, because the daughter embodies the light side of the Force. Mm. And then the son is on the right. You can see his face, and he embodies the dark side of the Force. And obviously in that Clone Wars arc, he's supposedly dead, because when the father stabbed himself, it took away his power, and then Anakin killed him with his lightsaber. But it's theorized either the son is calling to Balin, or it's potentially the mother that's calling to him, which I believe they dealt with the mother's arc outside of the Clone Wars. It may have been a comic or a book, but the mother essentially kind of dipped into this fountain of power or wisdom, and it kind of gave her deeper knowledge of the Force, and then it drove her crazy. and so the father locked her up. So it's believed that either the son's calling and he's not really dead, or the mother is calling to Balin to maybe release her or something.
Is that Abeloth?
Yeah, Abeloth. That's her name. Yeah, he also kind of went on talking about how Anakin maybe has, like you said, taken the position of the father, and that he wasn't showing up as a Force ghost, but actually stepping outside of time in the world between worlds, because he's the chosen one and ascended to the power, basically a god of the Force. And he was training and, kind of guiding Ahsoka in that episode. Just kind of theorized that Ahsoka wasn't having visions, but Anakin was actually reaching to her through the Force, because he's elevated that position of the deity, basically.
That's it. I mean,
Those are people who do a lot more work at theorizing than I do. I'll tell you that much, because that's like.
listen. All I, do is
I'm very
all I do is
familiar
read
with the. I'm very familiar with the Mortis arc from Clone Wars, and I obviously understood what it was referencing in that final scene. But I was like, I mean, I'm just wondering how much of it was Ray Stevenson had passed and they needed something to do with him, so they just kind of sent him off into nothing and didn't give you an answer about it.
Well, I don't think they would.
I'm not trying to throw away the theories, but I'm just saying.
I don't think they would leave it open ended like that. I think if they were just going to get rid of him, I think they would have just had Ahsoka kill him, or defeat him, whatever. But I feel like they were actually going somewhere with that, and it was because it caught everybody off guard that he passed.
Yeah. I feel like if they would have set up, or if they would have known that he was going to pass away before they finished it, they would have had him get killed by, like you said, Ahsoka or Thrawn, maybe. But the fact they left it open-ended kind of makes me think that maybe they'll recast him or try to do something else with his story.
I think they should have recast him, though, because I think Ray Stevenson did a really good job. So it'd be kind of like
He
disappointing.
did.
Yeah, he was great.
He was the best character in the show, I think, by a long shot. I don't think it was close.
I agree.
I think the only two that I could say I enjoyed their portrayals was I like Hu Yang's character, and I thought Ezra's actor did a good job with his character.
I think so.
Chopper, I'm telling you.
Well, yeah, but that's easy. That's easy to get Chopper right.
I think I saw somebody that could take the place of Ray Stevenson, and I thought it was a pretty good one. It's the guy. Hold on, let me pull. I don't know if I can say his name right. Leave Schreiber.
I'm not sure who that is.
He played in well, I mean, obviously he's played in a bunch, but one that we would know, I think. Well, maybe not.
You say Lee Schreiner?
Leave Schreiber. Like he played in X-Men Origins as Sabretooth.
Okay, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
But he's a lot older now than he was then. But so he's kind of grayed out.
They do look similar.
Yeah.
I mean,
he's kind of a bulkier dude too. He's kind of bigger.
He's kind of turned to more directing, I think, than he does acting now. But it's just, I saw it and I was like, oh, that's pretty good. It's pretty good recast. But we'll see. If I was them, I think I might try and find a way to maybe salvage some deleted scenes or already repurposed scenes just to maybe close something out, just to kind of, have the respect for the character, I think.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if they do something like they did with Luke and make him look younger.
Right.
Mando.
CGI something.
Yeah. I mean, same thing like Paul Walker, Fast Furious. I mean, I guess I wouldn't be surprised if they do something like that. I'd prefer if they did something like that over probably recasting them.
Right. I'd rather not. I'd rather not do a recast.
No.
Do we think? I mean, do y'all just to kind of? I know we've kind of mishmashed the finale and the entire show into this one clip, and that's fine. But do y'all feel like the show as a whole, all 8 episodes, lived up to what it should have, or do y'all feel like it's kind of lacking a little bit, or was lacking?
I think it underperformed a little bit. I don't think it was like terrible. I mean, it had its ups and downs, and it had some pretty good like stuff in it. But I don't think it was as good as Andor, and I don't think it was as good as like Mandalorian season 1 and 2.
Well, I mean, as a whole, the first 3/4 of the season is pretty slow. So
Very.
As a whole, I say it did not live up to. But towards the end, it got better. But I still don't think. I think you could have done more with it. If you'd have done more at the beginning, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
I mean, it wasn't a bad show. I don't want to be hating.
No.
No.
But the Ahsoka that I grew
That's
up
okay.
with,
You can leave that to me.
Yeah.
the Ahsoka that I grew up with in the Clone Wars was not at all the Ahsoka that we see in this show. And I understand things have changed. Clearly, it's a completely different timeline and such. But at least growing up, I loved the Ahsoka in the Clone Wars. And so if you're going to play off of Ahsoka, I would like to play off of Ahsoka more. And there wasn't any of what I was used to growing up with the Clone Wars.
She's
Well,
also
really-
a lot different just in terms of like even in Rebels, she's a little bit more
was about to
serious
say.
and quiet, but it's still
the
the
change her in
essence of-
Rebels is when they make that change, to be honest.
But even in this show, to me, she's even more like stoic and emotionless than she is
Especially
in
at the
Rebels.
beginning.
Yeah. Well, she's not in Rebels very long. She's in it for like half a season in
And then a
season
second half.
2, and then she's in it for like an episode or two at the very end. So it's not like she's in it very much, but it's just kind of, I don't know. I'm kind of with you, Bryant. My fondest memories of her is from the Clone Wars, and she's sort of this optimistic, snarky, very athletic, and quick and sort of upbeat character. And then you get her in Rebels, still very much the same sort of physical, athletic. She's flipping and she's twisting and turning and all these things, and it's like, and then you get her in this show, and it's like, and no offense to Rosario Dawson, I've seen her in other things, and I love her as an actress. Like, don't take anything away from her there, but like, you can tell in a lot of scenes that that Ahsoka's being played by a 40-something-year-old actress that just doesn't do a lot of these sort of action roles. And I mean, I understand that. And like I said, it's nothing against her, but at the same time, it's completely like I heard I don't remember who it was that said it's like, well, why not just have a stunt double for the action sequences? Someone that can like flip around and do some martial arts looking stuff. And I'm like, yeah, I would have been fine with that, because I think you just lose so much of the physicality of her. And it's really like 10 years removed from Rebels, and she was still pretty nimble in those, those seasons. I mean, she was only in her 20s in the Clone Wars, probably, and I don't know how her species ages, but I think that was hard for me, is in just the fact that I don't feel like Rosario played her with much emotion at all, even after her sort of transformation about halfway through the season. I feel like it was just kind of wooden at times. Same with Sabine. I mean, they were just kind of emotionless too often, and it was like, it was just hard to be emotionally invested at times, I guess is the best way to put it.
Yeah, I kind of see that. So Ahsoka is, I told Johnny this earlier, but she's like tied for my favorite character in Star Wars, very closely with Anakin. And going into this, I wasn't expecting a lot, I guess, just because I didn't know the storyline, but I was hoping that they would do a good job with Ahsoka, just because she's such a really good character, very well written character. And I had trust that it would be done well, considering Dave Filoni was writing and producing the show. Say overall, I'm happy with the show, but would agree that it wasn't as good as other Disney Plus Star Wars shows that they've made so far. just in terms of story, it was very slow, but definitely putting Hayden in the show to come back and play Anakin was a big plus. Getting to see him reprise as Anakin and do a very good job, and just to see them like interact together on screen was really special because you only saw it animated. And
I feel like that
Clone
should have
Wars.
been half the season, though, to be honest with you.
Yeah,
Him talking in Force Ghost form for like half the show would have been like better than what we got at a lot of points.
yeah, it was slow, especially once they got to the planet. But I did enjoy Thrawn kind of outwitting her because he knew Anakin and knew his tactics, so he could just play her based off that because that's the way that she was trained as well.
I did like the way they played off of that.
Yeah,
I did like the way they kind of made it seem like Thrawn outsmarted her.
yeah, I love the ending too, even though it sucked for them to get stuck on the planet. Just him firing up the hyperspace and then saying "Long live the Empire" and then just jumping and kind of dropping the mic moment right there on her. It's definitely pretty cool.
Oh, that other moment where they like don't explain it. Like Ezra's on his ship, and then all of a sudden Ezra's not on his ship, and he's just like taking a shuttle and disappeared. I'm like, you think Thrawn didn't, unauthorized shuttle departure? And it's like, no, he's just there. It's like I can understand him disguising himself on the Star Destroyer as a stormtrooper. That's very much his character. He does that in Rebels more than once.
Mhm.
But like he's just like all of a sudden with the Rebels, and it's like no explanation.
Yeah. Kind of seems like they just kind of ran out of time. We're like, let's just explain him getting there.
They ran out of time, but Chopper was with him too. So not Chopper. Chopper was with him at the end.
Yeah.
But they did that a lot in Rebels. They would just show up.
But it's different though. Like, I think that's the problem with someone like Thrawn's character, who I think in a lot of ways it's almost impossible to get him right because he's so stinking smart in the books, and
Right.
he's always outwitting everybody. I think it's hard when you make a character that's that almost flawless. That it's like whenever someone like Ezra is just able to sneak off the ship. It's very much out of character for Thrawn to just kind of let that happen, because he's always got all his bases covered. And I think that goes for a lot of Thrawn's decisions throughout the show, where it's like, it's just hard to think that the things that some of the characters did would have been able to outsmart the Thrawn that like we see in the books and stuff. And I think that's kind of the problem when introducing a character like him.
Yeah. I mean, he's smart, but he's not perfect. Obviously, we saw at the end of Rebels, Ezra was able to outsmart him and, use the whales to jump to hyperspace. And
I do think super interesting that, he got beat by the Bendu, so the kind of a force entity or whatever you want to call it. And then he got beat by the Purgil by Ezra and the Jedi. So now he's like super leery of any force user or any Jedi, anything like that. So he sides with the Night Sisters. So he has his own, I would say, has
force
his own
wielding
group. Yeah. I mean,
I think so. Like we've talked about this in previous videos. In the original Thrawn trilogy, the only way they were able to beat his character was like basically he was obliterating them, even all the way into the final book, and they couldn't stop him. There was no way to stop him, and the only way they did was that Leia was basically able to turn his own allies against him, which were the dadgum, I forget their name every time I do this. His assassins, his bodyguards, the Nagri, that's who they are. But she was able to go to the village and like convince the Nagri to turn on Thrawn, and he had this long-standing alliance with him that he thought couldn't possibly be, flipped. And then she goes and she flips him, and then Thrawn's own personal assassin, which is Rook in the Rebels series, is the one who actually kills him in the book. And it's like, if she hadn't gone and done that, they wouldn't have beat him. Like, there's no way. And so the only way they beat him is essentially to outmaneuver him in the one way he thought was impossible, to where he could turn his longest standing allies against him. And so I think that's, like, when you say he's not perfect, like, he's darn near perfect in the books. I mean, that's the problem, I think, when you're adapting a character. It's like, tactically they could not beat him. It had to be something that was like, hey, I got to persuade this large group of creatures to turn against this person they've served for all these years. And so that was kind of the whole crux behind it. But that's what I mean when I say it, like, hard to adapt a character like that.